Hey, Jason. So, are you on version 46 of Chrome by any chance? Because typically, if you can see yourself and we can't see you, you might need to type in the chat because we can't hear you either. We can't hear or see you at all, Jason. So can you tell me? He's gone.
I actually believe in Jason. So just call back in. We'll keep this going.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to blab to yourself. That wouldn't be cool.
Not in public anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Teague, can you hear me now? Can you join?
All right.
Yeah, it happens. Cupcake, I can't let you in yet. I'm sorry. I gotta make sure my co-host can actually join.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Furkan, thank you for helping out. I'm sorry about the consternation. Okay, can't hear you, but I'll trust that things are thumbs up. Okay. Well, Teague, unfortunately, I think I narrated to nobody. So Dominique and I are going to have to do this all over again. But we've been recording for a solid 8 minutes. So there's going to be some awesome stuff for YouTube later.
Fantastic. That's going to be fun to watch. I'll have to check it out.
Excellent. Well, let's.
Hi, Dominique.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Startup Jab, episode 7, Money, Money, Money. Money. I am your host, Jason Ellis. And with me, as always, is my prettier half, Teague Hopkins.
I think your prettier half is sitting right next to you.
Oh, thanks.
Well, that's true. She's like pretty V2. I'm like pretty OG. Anyway, we appreciate you guys joining us. I'm sorry that you couldn't hear me earlier. Otherwise, that's just awkward. Thank you guys for being here. Kiki, Larry, Derek, always a pleasure to see you all. Before I start nerding out on the folks here in the Blab, I'm going to let Dominique introduce herself, and we're going to talk about money and being an entrepreneur and how not to spend all of it. So that's always good. You want to give a little intro?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Dominique Broadway. I'm a financial planner and personal finance coach and a personal finance expert. I'm the founder of Finances Demystified. And basically what I do is help young professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives understand their money, where it's going, like you said, not to blow it. And, most importantly, how they can use it to bring all their dreams to reality, no matter what those different dreams are. So that's about me.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. So first question, more than anything else. I'm a startup founder. Teague is a startup founder. Neither of us have a lot of money.
Okay.
What's the first thing we should do? What is the smartest thing that we should do if we're just
make lots of money?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on your definition of a lot of money.
I'm sorry. All the money.
Make all the money. Step 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try to make as much money as possible. No, but realistically, I think a lot of times for when I see people starting businesses, startups or whatever, small businesses or whatever it may be, people never really understand what their expenses are. And it's so weird. And I call it like your magic number, right? So your 2 magic numbers, one is your income, if you're a regular employee, but 2 is your expenses. You need to know how much it costs to run you, right? So how much does it cost to run you, Jason? Keep the rent and mortgage paid, lights on, the basic stuff, food. These are things no one wants to talk about. They're just like, hey, I'm up and I'm—
That's not true. I always want to talk about food.
Yeah, we want to talk about food. No one never really wants to understand how much it costs to live.
Sure.
So you need to figure out what that magic number is and what your fixed expenses are. If it's your student loans, your rent, your mortgage, your car note, your car insurance, your transportation, all those things, so that you can figure out how much you need to make and how much you need to pay yourself. So that you don't completely destroy your finances while you're starting your business. So I think that's the first thing that I realize a lot of people don't even know. So you should know, like, okay, it costs $2,500 a month to run me, right? Just to keep my own personal stuff going.
God, I wish it was still $2,500 a month. It hasn't been $2,500 a month since I left college.
Whatever that amount is for you is from your business, right? So, like, even in your example, your business has tons of employees, right? Not tons, but it has a good amount of employees. So even your business expenses now are going to be much higher than before. So that's a whole nother magic number, as they say.
Totally.
Yeah, and you need to know those, like. If anyone asks you your age, you'd be able to say it. They ask you how much it
78.
costs to run you every month. You should know.
4,000 a day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I think is like one of the first things.
Okay. Teague, thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I think that's where I would start too. I like that.
What would you say is one of the big mistakes that entrepreneurs make when they're getting started? I mean, aside from like knowing your number and having a sense of math, you know, one of the things you hear about a lot of entrepreneurs, whether they're, you know, consultants or they're doing contract work or they're trying to build a scalable startup, there's lots of pitfalls around building a business. Is there one that you would point to as being like a common mistake that startup entrepreneurs have when they're building their business, with the business itself? I mean,
yeah, I would say not pricing themselves well enough, honestly, or not setting the right prices.
Sure.
And I think a lot of times, you know, entrepreneurs, you know, they have the hashtag team no sleep. You know, that's not cool. You should totally be sleeping.
I love sleep.
Me too. I love it. I try to get my 8 hours every day.
Only 8, huh?
Yeah.
14.
But I really think that a lot of times entrepreneurs, they don't price well. And a lot of times because they're just getting started, they're just so eager to get their product or get their service out into the market and they want everybody to buy it and they undervalue themselves. And so they're not bringing in enough money to meet expenses. I think that's one of the biggest things I've seen. It's like, why are your prices so low and you're working so daggone hard?
Sure.
So yeah, pricing.
Well, Teague had an interesting point when we were talking last week about how, particularly when you're sort of doing what we do, right? When you're giving advice and trying to help people, there's a line you have to draw. Teague, do you remember this, that you were talking about, sort of the line you draw between when to charge and when not?
Yeah. When I'm, you know, one of the things about building a business and about marketing is you get asked for a lot of free stuff. And my rule of thumb is I'm always willing to give advice for free, but if you want me to actually do the work for you, you need to pay me.
Yeah. Do you think it's one of those things, and this is really a question for both of you, I mean, do you think it's the kind of thing where it's a little bit about self-confidence too, that some people don't think that they're worth charging a certain amount?
I think it's totally about self-confidence. And that's also, you know, being the only woman on the call, that's also why typically they say women make less than men. You know, it's because men will have more self-confidence to say, no, this project is $50,000. And women are like, okay, I'll do it for 25, you know, and that's not cool. Another thing too, I was thinking about, I know one of my bigger mistakes when I first started, it was kind of like, woohoo, I'm starting this business. The first thing I'm going to do is go get this super awesome office. And I got this really nice office space in Bethesda, Maryland. Oh my gosh, it was so expensive. But it was like, that's just what you're supposed to do. It was such a waste of money. I was never there. The parking alone was like ridiculous.
Well, it's Bethesda. Anybody who's been to Bethesda knows they want to screw you on parking.
I had an awesome view.
We have a great view here.
No, I know WeWork wasn't open then.
I'm just saying.
But that's why I was here. But either way, that was another thing that I see. You know, you just because you're an entrepreneur does not mean you need to go have like the biggest corner office in the major metropolitan city. People mess up like that all the time. They do.
I mean, one of the things I certainly see in marketing, and I know Teague certainly sees when he's, you know, working with, you know, smaller clients, and is that sense of, you know, well, it's like people who want to be an adult and sort of prove that they're an adult, they go and get married and have kids, right? There's a certain externalness that you think you have to show your adultedness. And then you're like, wait, now I'm on the hook for a lot of fucking money in every direction. And I curse again. I've done this every time. I always drop the F-bomb. There's something wrong with me. I'm sorry, T.
It's cool. We're just the entire podcast is flagged explicit.
Great. Excellent. It's just easier that way. It's fine.
So one of the things that I want to mention though is it is possible to go too much in the other direction, right? Like a lot of times people, particularly because I talk to a lot of startups that are interested in doing lean, and sometimes they misunderstand lean and they think lean means don't spend any money ever. And so it's, you know, the idea is don't spend the money you don't need to spend until you need to spend it, and then you should spend it, right? Like sometimes trying not to spend the money ends up costing you more in the long run. So you probably don't need to get that office space right up front, but you might want to talk to a lawyer right up front, because trying to do that yourself could end up costing you a lot in the long run. And so it's really about figuring out where you should spend the money and where you can afford to just kind of wait a while.
Well, and you're talking too about the difference between, in a lot of ways, you're talking about the difference between sort of a long-term asset versus a long-term liability, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Like of something the conference I was at recently called Blogalicious, and they were talking about how people were stealing pictures. Instead of taking the $5 or so to buy a picture and buy the rights to the picture, people are stealing pictures off of Google, and it's costing them thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Like if you had just spent the $10 or $15 on the front end, you would be in a lawsuit with Getty Images right now. So that's same example. Spend money, when you need to. You don't have to be lean or cheap sometimes in unnecessary things. So
well, and Teague and I, being the lean startup guys here on Blab, we tend to think of lean as being more iterative than cheap. But the truth of the matter is, cheap is a problem. I mean, I know when I was getting started, I was looking to cut corners whenever I could because I thought that's how you improve your overhead. Not realizing that you can do just as well as that by just offering better quality services at a reasonable uptick in price. So I was cheap. I still am cheap. Who am I kidding? I'm the worst. Okay.
Or the best.
Or the best. I don't think there are many people who would.
I'm pretty cheap.
I mean, I like
I'm
to
frugal.
think.
I'm
frugal.
Yeah.
The word I would use is
I'm
frugal.
frugal.
I would not say fiscally conservative. I'd say frugal.
I think I'm fiscally conservative.
Yeah.
I don't like blowing money on unnecessary things.
See, I do. That's my problem. I absolutely do. Cool. Well, guys, we appreciate you joining us so far. In case you're just popping in, we are here with Miss Finance Coach herself, Dominique Broadway, who is graciously giving her time to tell you about how to not spend money on stuff you don't need, or really telling me how to spend money on stuff I don't need, or how not to, rather. We're going to open up questions in a little bit, but if you have any you want us to get started with, you are welcome to use the chat to send us some starter questions. Yeah, no, they'll pop up right there.
Oh, that's a good one there. IKEA office spree.
Yes. Should we invest in good furniture? Or should we cheap out on the furniture?
No, I think she's saying that she went to IKEA and had an office spree and probably bought too much furniture than employees. She probably had like 7 seats in one.
Well, I happen to know that the Kiki over there is actually, she's quite frugal and keeps it real conservative on the financial side. Yeah. But on that topic, I mean, I think, we talked about this a little bit on the show that we're in a space in DC right now where we've got a lot of different companies that are doing a lot of different things, right? Yeah. And some of them are in a very much a startup mode, and some of them are very established, nonprofit, for-profit. There's a great variety. Do you find in interacting with the folks here that there are common best practices that's something that sort of affects everybody? Whether it's in relating to their resources, employees versus the amount of the amount of money that they spend on investment in their employee. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I
sort of
feel
trailing off at the end there. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like what I've seen as far as like from an employee standpoint or resources, delegation is key. Yeah. To grow, but interns, I think sometimes people don't realize how you can get like a really great like unpaid person, which sounds really bad.
Does not sound
bad when you say it that way. But you can get a really.
It's actually not legal.
It's not legal anymore.
It's actually illegal. Well, I don't think it ever was legal. It's just that it's actually being more enforced now. If an intern is, what's that?
It's still happening.
Why don't we split the difference?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's definitely
available. Who are interested in learning cheap labor? Who are interested in learning and having the experience of it as well?
Yeah, but I mean, still, I think it's still legal to get unpaid interns if you offer them college credit. That's not legal either.
College credit,
it's okay. It is legal if they are not doing work that is valuable to the business, right? If they are actually just learning on like you're actually giving them training, then it's legal. I believe even if you're giving them college credit, you can't have them do work that you would otherwise be paying somebody else to do.
Okay.
Because then they're unpaid labor.
Call it low cost labor.
Yeah.
Teague does know the letter of the law.
I do not. I am not a lawyer. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying, if you're thinking about not paying your employees, you probably ought to talk to one.
Yeah, no, I didn't even know that. Thank goodness I'm paying everyone now. But yeah, I definitely feel like that's one of the things people do look for, a lot of times unpaid or, internships that offer a stipend at the end. You drop $1,000 at the end, that's going to be much cheaper than paying them, $20 an hour or something like that.
As long as it ends up working out to minimum wage, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Another thing I've noticed, like from a lot of businesses, I think is just partnering. I know you're probably a good example of that, partnering and collaborating with other entrepreneurs. And, and bartering services in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, poor Christine's having a heart attack because she's a payroll manager at Roku.
Oh, gosh. I should probably send it some kind of letter, a legal letter.
Dear people, these guys.
Dear people of StartupJab.
Yeah.
But also just realizing like the people that you know and the resources that you know. I mean, I know I ran into Jason last week and like talked to him for like 10 minutes in the hallway and got so much information that I almost feel like he needs to send me some sort of invoice.
Oh, I'm happy to. Don't let me be clear. Nah,
but
you're doing this. We'll call you.
A lot of times we don't realize like the resources that we have around us. I think that that's one of the things I like about WeWork and also just DC in general. Like entrepreneurs, we always collaborate, we help each other out, and we're willing to work together or provide, you know, whatever resources we have. And I think a lot of times as an entrepreneur, especially when you're a startup entrepreneur, you can get so stuck in your own realm that you almost are embarrassed to ask questions like, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do that. And if you don't ask those questions, then, you know, you'll never learn, and you'll probably end up paying a lot more to learn if you ever learn, if you ever grow.
Totally. So Mike has a question in the chat. How can a startup not be D-bags as it relates to interns? Well, pay them for starters. And the intern's value proposition. Free labor is not necessarily fair labor. That's a valid point, actually. In truth, I mean, what's your response to that? I don't want to jump in. I'm loud.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've got some really great free labor. But actually, one of the interns I had, she did work for free for a while, and then she had to leave to get paid. And I was like, no, you're so amazing. I don't want you to ever go. And I did start paying her, and I didn't know it was that was a while ago. But I don't know.
I mean, my response to that, and Teague, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. I mean, my response is that you have to have an honest look at what you want your intern to do and learn, right? There is value in what they're doing, as Rosemary's saying, and you have to relate that back to, you know, money out of pocket. Now, you might be able to negotiate where, you know, you want to pay one person $18 an hour, you can pay this person $14 an hour because they are getting valuable experience they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to get. But you have to be honest in your assessment of that. You can't just decide, I mean, unless you're a complete dick, you can't just decide that you're going to pay them as little as possible because you can get away with it.
Well, and there's plenty of businesses that attempt to run on that model. I think, you know, the piece of it that I come back to is this idea that there's a reason we have a minimum wage, and internships is not supposed to get around that, but it might mean that you get somebody who is actually worth a fair amount more than minimum wage, who's willing to take minimum wage in exchange for the opportunity to do the work.
Sure.
The difficulty gets into when we start not paying anything, and then you're basically saying your internship is only open to people who are privileged enough to be able to take an unpaid job. Right. And that perpetuates all kinds of cycles of oppression. And we get into some really kind of negative side effects of that sort of circumstance.
Because people email me every now and then like, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. I just want to help out. Like, volunteers, are the days of volunteers dead? Like, that's
a good question.
So what if someone says, I want to volunteer with your company, even if it's a for-profit company? I
would say, I think it's a slippery slope. Would you agree, T?
So what my understanding, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is if you are a nonprofit, you can have volunteers. If you are for profit, you must pay them at least minimum wage. Mm. The other piece of that is like the people who are reaching out and saying like, hey, I want to work for free and learn on the job and help you out are privileged people, right? They're people who either their family is supporting them, or they have some money, or they have some privilege that allows them to take that opportunity. And so you're not going to get those emails from people who need to make minimum wage to be able to, pay for rent and food.
Totally. Well, and I think too, our economy is based on the concept of I provide a service, you pay me for it. I provide a product, you pay me for it. I think that when you start to skirt even the basic rules, you run the risk. There's certainly never going to be economic collapse because of that, but you run the risk of sort of like playing a different game, which doesn't end well for anybody, right? Because as you said, not only does it does it create problems of privilege, it also, it kind of makes you expect over the long term that you can get away with that no matter what. Yeah. And I think that mindset is what becomes really dangerous, because then you cut corners, then you actually become cheap, and you value really your bottom line over the health of a larger business, right? You're trading, a short-term gain for a long-term growth. Yeah. And that's, I'd rather lose 10% of my margin to ensuring that I have the right people doing the right stuff than, keeping it because I'm greedy. I mean, this isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the short-term versus long-term argument is a great point. I think that's exactly the thing you need to worry about when you're cutting corners in the beginning is if you are, if you're not paying your employees a living wage and you're not, moving forward in a sustainable manner, you're kind of basically trying to build a business to flip it, right? You're trying to grow on the backs of employees that may stick around for not a whole long period of time, and then try to sell it to somebody else so that they can worry about how to make it sustainable later on. Yeah, totally. In a lot of ways, it's it's like flipping a house where you just sort of upgrade the fixtures a little bit so that they look nice, but under the surface, the plumbing is still falling apart.
So what do you think about when people hire, a lot of people are hiring like these virtual assistants that are like overseas for $3 an hour. And I was reading an article recently there, and I think someone was getting on some company for doing this. I can't remember who, like, how are you hiring these people for $3 an hour? It's horrible. And then the person's rebuttal was kind of, well, $3 an hour over there is
a lot for them.
So I'm really not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Aren't we?
I think one of the best
questions.
No, but I'm just wondering because it is a
it's good.
Sure.
To bring
it's a good question.
Staff.
Totally.
Especially to do those just little tasks that are, just I don't know, what do you call them? Just little tasks that need to get done and nobody else wants to do that, maybe like data entry or something like that. Totally. What are your thoughts on that though? I know I'm not supposed to be asking questions.
No.
No, it's great. This is flipping the tables on us. I love it.
All right.
No, I think so. The benefit there is that because it's not geographically located, what is a small amount of money in DC might be a whole lot of money for somebody living in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a market efficiency, right? We're arbitraging the cost of labor over geographical distances.
Arbitraging is a big word.
It was.
No, I'm kidding.
I liked it.
No, Teague is the smart one on the show, I like to say. No, I agree. I mean, look, I think that there is, I think that it is a responsibility if you're going to do that you understand that what you are contributing to may in the long run have difficult, it may be that those countries will eventually want to grow to the level of, GDP and standard of living that America enjoys and appreciates. And if you're doing it in such a ways that you really are valuing somebody, and that I think like anybody else, if you're going to use a virtual employee who's, not in the US, if you're going to use them long term, you should pay them more over time because they're providing consistent value and they're giving you something you don't want to otherwise do. Yeah. But I think that there's I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think there's a moral responsibility in making sure that what you're doing isn't also, keeping somebody down. I mean, it's the same way that, if there are minimum wage jobs available here in the US, there are always going to be people to take them. It doesn't mean that they're going to actually provide the standard of living that they should have. Yeah. So I think understanding your larger, boy, we got deep today. I love this.
This is good.
I like it. But understanding your impact, I think is important.
Yeah.
So I think, Jason, beyond that, I want to point out that often, like, yes, there's absolutely that moral responsibility, but usually when you're doing well by the moral responsibility, you're actually also doing well by the business long term, right? We talk about like you want your employees to have a sustainable, life, and if they are making enough money that they're not stressed about where their next meal is going to come from or whether they can make rent, they're actually going to do better work. And in the long term, that benefits your business, right? Being a good corporate citizen is actually good for business in the long term. It's just that so often we get distracted by the short term, I'm paying, $19 an hour versus $10 an hour or whatever it is, that we forget about the long term implications of what we're doing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So, guys, I want to take a second and just say, we've got some other questions coming in the chat. We're opening up the seat shortly after we answer Mike's question. If anybody wants to jump in and ask live, Dominique is here and happy to address stuff and clearly to turn the tables back on you, as we've now discovered. So, it shouldn't be boring. Mike's question, why does the tech sector see so much flight of people in the startup space? I have friends who have jumped positions every 9 months to 1.3 years consecutively. So I actually just saw data on this, which I think might inform the conversation. It also, one of the influencing factors, Mike, may be their age. right? So if we're talking about younger people, if we're talking about people under the age of 35, it is far more likely that they're going to switch jobs regularly because they see it as an opportunity to explore, build, and to, you know, very quickly improve their salaries. Some of it is also cultural, I would imagine. Silicon Valley is very, particularly Silicon Valley, but technology across the world is built on the idea that you come in, you make an impact, and you move on to the next thing. It's a little bit nomadic in that way, I would say.
Yeah, and for what I've seen, like, I met someone recently, I think he's been at like Twitter and Snapchat, and now he's at like Facebook or something, all in the past like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But also too, they're constantly getting recruited, you know, and for what I've seen, it usually is money in culture as well.
Totally. Yeah. So Paul will be,
and sometimes the challenge is, you know, if you're a young employee who's learning quickly and advancing at a company, or rather, you know, wanting to advance in a company, and there's no space for you to advance into, the only way to move up in your career quickly is to switch to another company.
Totally.
And that's, you know, that's the problem with a lot of small companies in particular, right? If you're at a startup and you're a, you know, junior engineer and they don't have a position for you to move up into, you look for a, you know, a mid-level engineer job somewhere else.
So one of the other questions we've got from Sean, the CEO of Blab, always a pleasure to have you, sir. Do you think there could be an easier way to find startups that are floundering and want to be acqui-hired? Are you offering? Because I mean, Teague and I we could bring our show to the West Coast, and you just pay us gobs of money.
What's acqui-hired?
So acqui-hired would literally be you buy the company to really get the talent in-house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when one company buys another, basically because it's easier than hiring an engineering team. They'll just buy the engineering team. They don't care about the product.
And that happens pretty, not a lot, but I mean, I've
fairly regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would say easier way. I'm sure there could be an easier way, but I think the question is, how do you signal that? That's an interesting question. I don't know.
Well, how do startups make it known that they're open for
usually behind closed doors?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Because you don't, if you're still running a business, you don't want to be telling people that your business is failing.
Right. So it'd be sort of like being like, Dominique, it's so great to see you. I'm so desperate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Sean, that's a really interesting question. I think that acqui-hire is one of those parts of being in the tech world that is, I don't want to say it's looked down on necessarily, but it's not as sexy as actually being bought, right? There's a difference, or being sold rather. There's a difference between like, I'm buying you because I want your talent, which basically says, great, now I'm locked into this company that I didn't start, right? I'm no longer the owner, I'm an employee, and I assume that they're there for a set amount of time. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but more often than not, when you're acquired,
or maybe you're selling your engineering team off to another company.
Well, look, I knew that, I mean, the CTO at Flipboard is my former boss at Hulu, and when he left, he started a company called Early, which Sean Parker bought, and Sean Parker basically acqui-hired them to build out the product he wanted at that time, and committed the whole team to a very set amount of time before they were able to explore new opportunities. For some people, that may not be appealing. For some people, that may, that may be failure in some ways, I guess, even though you're still making money. I mean, I don't know.
And let's be clear, you can't, when you're selling your company, you're not committing employees to working for a period of time for another company unless they agree to it.
Well, sure.
Right? It's not like it's not like you're selling their contract and they don't have a choice. They have to pack up their bags and
I mean, they could totally decide to leave.
Yeah,
like the new manager.
Yeah, but I think the problem though is, I mean, to flip that is if the deal is contingent on the employees coming along. If they're not coming along and the deal falls through, it's possible that the health of your company is now, in the crapper because you positioned yourself to be acqui-hired, right? You set everything up to make it as appealing as possible. And if the deal falls through because the employees won't go, then you might be out of another business.
But a lot of times when companies get acqui-hired, which is a new word I learned today, word of the day. I
love this. It's a term.
No, I know, but it's new for me. So I'm like, acqui, I can't wait to use it all day. No, but I'm just wondering, typically I think, and I'm just asking, don't the CEO or sometimes the founder may stay on for a short amount of time just to make the employees feel comfortable. So it's not like the CEO is just like, deuces, I'm out. Take all my employees, just to kind of make the transition easier. Because I mean, it would make the sale. It would probably piss off the buyer. You're buying the talent, and then the talent gets mad and leaves
Sure,
because the
I get that.
CEO's gone.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think that Mike had a follow-up question about how can a startup, other than money, solidify those resources that they don't take flight. You have to get buy-in. I mean, I think at bottom line, it's about people joining other people, right? It's Seth Godin's tribes all over again. You have to
expand on buy-in, because that's such a buzzword that it doesn't really mean anything anymore.
That's fair.
What do you mean when you say buy-in?
You have to. Okay, I'll take it from a theater perspective instead.
Yeah, good. I like it.
They have to grant. There has to be a sense of mutual permission. So in a situation like this, right? Let's say that Dominique's company wants to buy my company. Dominique comes to me with the deal and says, I want to pay you X number of dollars, and I think that you and your team are going to be a great addition. We're not looking to buy you because of your intellectual property or because of your technology, but we want your team, right? What I have to do then is come to my team and say, we as a collective entity, not just me as an owner, but we as owners of this concept, have to give each other permission to be honest first, right? You have to say to each other, like, this is how this is going to go down. This is the honest situation that this is going to happen. I can't make this happen without you saying to me, you're okay with it. So let's give each other the permission first to have the conversation, and then hopefully build that into the permission to say, yes, we want to take this journey together. Because as I'm discovering now with my company in transition, when you go and become part of something larger, you redefine everything. I mean, you end up, you start the rules over. Yeah.
You have them drink the Kool-Aid, as they say.
Oh, I hate that. I mean, I love it, but I hate it.
No, it's true.
It is.
When you think about what that's a reference to, it gets really creepy.
It does. But just to have them on board, to have them as excited as you are.
Totally. So one more question from Mike, and then if we can get somebody in the spot, I'd love to. I apologize for we had somebody trying to join earlier and it didn't quite work the way that they had hoped. We have a thriving tech scene here in Denver, which I've seen. It is a lovely scene. And Startup Week is quickly coming upon us. There will be a lot of noise around the event. How does a startup shine when there is so much noise going on during such an event? God, Mike, you are full of awesome questions. Yep. You are welcome to join in.
Great questions.
Thank you. Break something. I mean, absolutely break something, not literally something. Do not take a vase and break it in front of someone, although I suppose that would do it. But do something unexpected. Do something different. Shock somebody just a little bit, just enough to get their attention, but not enough to
piss them off.
Yeah, not enough to make them angry. I think in an event like that, I mean, the only way to get you watch any movie or you watch an example in real life, anytime there's a lot of people making a lot of noise, the only way to get their attention is to make a bigger, more jarring noise. And so, from a marketing and an earned media perspective, do something that breaks somebody's, focus on one thing and brings it your way. I don't know.
I think the other thing that you can think about when you're deciding, you want to be loud, but what do you want to say when you're being loud?
Yeah.
And in general, you want to say something that is polarizing, right? You want to say something that the people who are the right kind of people to be your customers will agree with and be like, oh yeah, you're saying this thing that not everybody is saying. And the people who are not the right customers for you are going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm just not going to pay any attention to you at all. I'm going the other direction, because you can't please everybody. Yeah. And what you want is not sort of a lukewarm response from everybody. You want a very passionate response from a small segment of people, right? And where small is relative, right? But you want you want to say something that is different enough, or that is that is polarizing enough that it's not the same thing that everybody else is saying, right? It's like if we say, we provide great customer service, that means nothing because everybody claims they provide great customer service, right? But if you can say something that people see as a shibboleth, or people see as a signal that you're part of their tribe, that you get them, then they're much more likely to pay attention and to feel a kinship with you.
Let's use the word shibboleth, by the way.
Beyond that.
And outside of breaking things, I would say maybe even Startup Week and all the startups are there, especially let's say for Blab, if Blab's there and they're trying to make noise, try to figure out a way to incorporate it into Startup Weekend. Where, there's going to be Blab events going on where people can bring on maybe co-founders that couldn't be there, or have their customers, Blab in and talk about certain things where everyone at Startup Weekend has to use Blab some way or another. Right. You know what I mean? So everyone's talking about it. That's I don't know.
No, I like it.
Making people use stuff.
Well, there's nothing.
I love that we went with the break something, and And Dominique's like, guys, you don't have to break stuff. You can actually provide value.
I said, don't physically break anything. All right. I feel like we backpedaled appropriately. Yeah. Gosh. Like I'm actually suggesting
disrupt the communication at Startup Weekend with Black.
Yes.
Let's say that.
Startup Week.
There you go.
Startup Weekend is a whole other thing. Get your startups together. Good Lord. It's like amateur hour.
Good.
Cool. Well, guys, we have an open seat if anybody cares to join. We have about 15 or 20 minutes. If any other questions in the comments pop up, we'd love to answer them. In the meantime, while we're waiting, Dominique, what is it you're working on right now that you're most excited about?
Actually, one of the things I'm probably most excited about is a new interview series I'm doing where I'm going to be asking influencers and celebrities, entrepreneurs about their first experience with money. And I want to know really like the nitty gritty of what did it take to start your business? What were those first few years like? And I'm doing that hopefully so that everyone else can see that entrepreneurs, influencers, and celebrities are just like them. They went through the same financial
Not celebrities. They're perfect.
No, they're not. They're the worst.
That is true.
And that's the point. So that's what I'm working on right now, and I have a great list, and where we start reaching out to people. So
okay, I got some people I should hook you up with.
Okay, but that's what I'm working on now. I'm trying to kind of demystify money and make it a little bit more provoke the conversation around it. So people are like, whoa, so and so the same thing I went through.
Yeah.
Especially as entrepreneurs, like I said, a lot of times you feel like, oh, it's just me, and I want people to realize it's not just them. It's everyone else is going through the same thing. So
no, totally.
Yeah.
I think. Particularly in light of a lot of the celebrities that are recently having like tax liens against them, like not only understanding how somebody with that much money gets there, but more importantly that like, that tax liens by themselves are not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
No, they're not. Nothing, honestly, there's nothing financially that can happen is the worst thing in the world. To me, like nothing.
Yeah. Oh no, Ron, try again if you can. Yeah, I hate when
the way that celebrities get there is by not following Dominique's rule number 1, which is know how much money you're spending.
Right.
Yeah, but I think also they get there is because they're giving all of their financial authority to someone else and not checking at all to make sure they're doing what So yeah, I think that's it. People just don't pay attention.
No, that is 100%.
It's like I have so much money, I'll hire you, and I'll never ever ask you what you're doing.
It's a funny thing. I don't think it's even
right.
Just for people who have a lot of money. I think for a lot of people, it's just a problem.
Oh,
I mean, if you ask somebody, if you ask me what my current credit card statements are, what the current status of my investments are, and how much I burn every month, I have to know that. You're absolutely right. Because that's what the responsible adult knows in terms of their financial health. In the same way that, if you're obsessed with exercise and you know what your resting heart rate is and you know how many calories you're consuming and all that stuff. I like eating. So there's that. So anyway, I would say, I would say that financial health is one of those things that you can't just help somebody see. I feel like it's a lot of coaching, right? It's the kind of thing that you have to sometimes in almost a therapeutic kind of way help people. Do you have a lot of experience with people who just like, they're totally lost and you have to hold their hands through the process?
Yeah. That happens a lot. Also to always ask people like what their first experience with money is.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, it has a lot to do with like how you think and manage money now. But yeah, a lot of people are just like, I am super anxious. Like, I don't want to, here's my credit card statement. It's been sitting on my kitchen counter for the past 3 months. I'm like, okay, throw that one away because I'm sure there's a new one.
Right.
And they won't even open it.
And I'm sure it's 20% more.
Yeah. and it's like, they're just like, I'm just
funny how that works.
I think the craziest thing too, when I was working like with high net worth individuals who had like $30-40 million and they were like always bouncing checks and they didn't understand that their investment account, like the money is invested. It's not cash. You're like, oh, I just bounced $20,000. Like, come on, dude. Like, really, the basic stuff. You have all this money. Why are you bouncing checks? A lot of doctors, that do the same thing too.
Yeah, but that would embarrass me. Like, I take that personally as like I wrote a check I literally can't cash. Like,
literally. But it's also like we explain to you that this is an investment account. Like you can only use the checks when there's cash and the investments are sold. And they're like, I don't get it, which is like, oh my gosh. And God gave you $30 million. Awesome.
And these are the people doing your surgery.
Yeah.
It's
not helpful. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times people just don't even have the money basics at all. But there's also a lot of just financial anxiety. Just not wanting to answer the phone or not wanting to, look at credit card statements or just anything, especially even for businesses. I mean, I've seen businesses like, I'm not opening those credit card statements because I know I can't pay them. It's like, well, you still got to look at them.
Yeah.
Maybe you can call, communication is key. You call the creditor and like, look, I can't pay this month, or I can only pay X amount. So
sort of the same way that like when you don't want to break up with somebody, you just avoid them.
Yeah. I guess they'll figure it out eventually.
Teach like, wait, it's been a while since I've dated. Is that a thing?
People do that.
Okay.
Cut it off. Don't worry, you'll find that special someone.
He's married. He's awesome.
Married? Yeah. Lucky you.
I'm so lonely.
It's been a long time since I was in the dating pool, but not because I've given up, because I found the love of my life.
You're missing a good time.
You are not. You are not. Well, guys, we got a little over 10 minutes left. If there are other questions or stuff that you want to discuss with Dominique, we've certainly got the time, and we appreciate everybody who's joined us so far. Teague, did you have any burning questions?
Yeah, I've got a good one. Okay, so for folks who are doing, who have the budget, they know how much they're spending, they've got the cushion, they're contributing to their IRA, they're doing all the stuff that they're supposed to be doing. What's your level 2 advice? What do you give to people who know this the budgeting stuff, and they're looking for how do I stretch it even further? How do I get a little more value out of it?
Yeah, I would say start investing. I think I meet a lot of people who are like, okay, I got the basics. I'm saving. I'm almost practically over saving. I'm saving so much money. I saved up $50,000. But all the $50,000 is sitting in my checking account. I'm like, so I feel like if you got that good cash cushion, and you have your emergency fund 3 to 6 months, you're debt free. If you're not debt free, pay off your debt. But if you don't have any debt, you're all cash, all assets there. Start investing. Make sure your money isn't sitting in your checking account. Make sure you put it in like a high yield savings account. Like one of my favorites right now is Everbank. They have a rate of like 1.4%. It's like the highest in the nation for the first 6 months, and it goes down to like 1.1. And then just start investing. You don't need tons of money to start investing.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of even fancier things you can do, with like, some fancy, like, equity type of life insurance. That's where the rich people hide all their money, is in life insurance, tax free. So that's when it gets a little fancier, when you want to start avoiding taxes, and, having that tax free income in retirement. So, passing wealth, to the next generation.
The truth of the matter is, I mean, there are tax advantages of simply having even a pass-through LLC, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to manage your funds between, me, Jason, the person, and me, Jason, my business, offers some protection, right? And it's knowing that, and knowing what those tools offer you. You can plan. I mean, even that set of tools gives you an immense amount of power that you wouldn't have as simply private citizen who gets paid by somebody and has to deal with it all personally.
And the ability to practically write off every single thing that you use.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Like,
That's
I'll go buy
for
outfits.
small business.
I have to use it for a speaking engagement. Write it off.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's when people get greedy that kind of stuff becomes problematic. Yeah. Dominique's like, yeah. Hold on, I gotta do some stuff in FreshBooks and fix and move that.
No, but anything that you're using, if it relates to you bringing in money, you can use it. It's a cost of the good that I'm selling, which is me speaking.
Yeah. Must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. All right. Well, guys, we've got to go 10 minutes. We'll take rapid fire questions if anybody's got them. I know Dominique is.
And no one's jumping on
in
the seat.
Well, they're tired of talking to me. I
mean, they're not getting in the seat.
Well, I know that they don't want to talk to me.
Well, can I ask you guys a question?
Oh, I love this. Okay. Go.
So I always ask people, like I said, what was their first experience with money?
Yeah.
Okay. So Teague, do you mind starting? What was your very first experience with money?
It's a hard question. I don't think I can remember that long ago.
I got one if you need me to vamp.
Let's go to Jason.
Yeah, you go first. Let me think about that one.
Trigger something.
So this is for the nerds in the crowd. But if anybody remembers Marvel Masterpiece cards, right? I'm 7 years old. T gets it. I'm 7 years old, and I get obsessed with these cards. Did you ever see these things?
No.
So they're like baseball cards, but instead of it being like baseball players and, you know,
Supermans and stuff?
yeah, but except it was like Storm and Wolverine. It was the X-Men. It was the Avengers. It was that kind of stuff. And they were like highly sought after.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, I wanted some. I didn't have any in allowance. It never had come up. So I asked my mom if I could borrow $5.
Okay.
And she was like, yeah, you can borrow $5. What do you want it for? I want to go buy this thing. Okay, but you're borrowing. And you said, can I borrow $5? Sure. Okay, here's $5. So she gives me the $5. I go and I buy the card. Now I got my little Storm card, right? And she's out.
You got one card?
I got the one card for $5. That's how expensive these
Like,
fucking
wow,
cards were.
pricey.
It was. They were not cheap. And at 7 years old, I totally had no concept of what I would do. Maybe I was 9. I don't remember. But anyway, so, you know, I got this card and I'm like, well, now I want another card. Now there's a Wolverine card I want. It's $10. So I go to my mom and I'm like, can I borrow $10? She goes, no. I go, what do you mean? She's like, we already owe me $5. Why would I give you 10 more? Then I'm out 15. You haven't done anything. Okay, right. So what should I do? We'll go do yard work for an hour. That'll be $5. And then if you want $10, go do these other things. And it became that understanding of goods and services equal money, then you buy things you want.
Oh, so you got the way the economy works.
Exactly. Then I quickly escalated through investment, and now here I am today. I'm a virtual mogul, and by virtual I mean in games.
In that's a good one. I like that. That's good.
Teague, how about you, man?
That is good. That is good. I don't remember that far back. I mean, I remember like my first business, which, you know, I was 14 when I started doing tech consulting for people who are not my family.
Smart. Yeah.
And it, you know, it was kind of in the very beginning, it was, you know, yeah, I can fix your computer. Yeah, I can fix your internet. I can do this other thing. And then sort of expanded there, and we're doing more and more kind of like, yeah, I'll build you a website. I'll wire your office. I'll do this other stuff. And over time I started realizing like, wow, a lot of people really want my time. I'm not sure I want to give away that much time. Maybe I should raise my prices. And so I did that several times until it got down to like, okay, this is, you know, this is now a reasonable amount of time for me to be spending in addition to like high school.
Yeah.
I think that was when that was the first time I kind of realized this, like, oh, you know, if you have too much work, you can just double your prices and lose half your customers and make the same amount of money in half the time. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great that you learned that so early. I feel like so many people are trying to understand that concept now.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, for a while I was just raising my prices until people told me they wouldn't pay them. So I mean,
then you take it down $10 and you're like, there you go.
Exactly. Oh, we can do it for $49.50. Yeah, absolutely.
That's funny.
Yeah. Cool, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, welcome to the Blab. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes ourselves. But we've got Dominique here, who is a
Hi, Patrick.
finance guru / genius. I'd say genius and guru.
Wow.
I like the alliteration there.
I like it.
But money is an interesting and challenging thing for a lot of people. I think it's really ironic when you see. By the way, I just noticed, none of you guys can see this. Dominique has her signature on her phone. I love that.
Logo.
I love it. I'm just saying.
Branding.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, we're going to let you in for about 4 minutes. We got you. But I think, good to see you, sir.
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
We're good. I was just saying, I think it's one of the interesting things about being in a startup situation where people want to earn money, but they're often afraid to really discuss it, which is, I think, the great irony of starting that. Patrick, have you seen that ever? That startups that you've helped or advised, or people, entrepreneurs who they want to go do and build things, but they don't really want to talk about the nuts and bolts of it?
Let me think. Well, my most recent company that I worked with and helped them to raise some early stage VC money. I mean, they started the company pretty cleverly, actually. They went round to a bunch of potential customers and said, you know, we want to do this thing. We want to build this thing. Would you please basically buy? It's in the academic publishing space, and they're kind of big hitters in that space. So they went round to some publishers and said, we want to do this thing. Would you buy a subscription before we've built it for £50,000, please? And enough people said yes. So that gave them like some seed funding to start the thing. And they built a prototype and an alpha test and a beta test. Yeah. And now they're live with several versions of the product.
It's textbook lean business development.
Oh, very, very cleverly done. And of course, it worked for them only because the three founders are hugely high profile within that industry.
Right.
So they all come from a consulting background in academic publishing. And they've basically pooled their talents to launch an online product. It's a thing called Kudos. So you can find it at, I'll put the address in the thing. You can check this thing out. It's growkudos.com. So it's aimed at academic authors, like researchers, and it's like basically the premise is, okay, so great, you got published, so you had your article published in computational biology magazine, great,
thrilling.
But now who's going to read it? Who's going to cite it?
Right.
There's like 1 billion academic articles getting published every year, and they reckon the stats say 50% of them never get read ever by anybody, and about 90% of them never get cited. So the toolkit that they've built with Kudos is designed to help academic authors to explain what their work is about, get it more easily found and read, and ultimately cited.
Sure.
And one of the key tools is they have this thing called a lay summary. So if you ever read an abstract of a computational biology paper, usually the only words you can understand in the abstract are of and the. Everything else is complete gobbledygook. So, but the best people to explain this stuff are the authors themselves. And some of the lay summaries that I've seen are absolutely brilliant. Like they really boil down what this thing is, and then also why it's relevant. And they're tightly integrated with social media tools like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, so that when you've done that, you can also publicize it to your network. So you can say, hey, I've just had this article published. This is what it's about. This is why it's important. Here's some materials to put it into context. And suddenly you've got the possibility of being found, being read, being cited, maybe not only by the other 3 people in the world who understand your field, but maybe another 100 or 200 in like a related field who, if they just had your original abstract, really wouldn't have a clue what you were talking about.
Love it. Very cool. Patrick, I apologize because we are literally at the end of the show and we have to sign off because Dominique she's super popular. But thank you. That was really cool. Growkudos.com, Kudos of Patrick's variety. Dominique, how can everyone
pronounces it correctly, probably.
There you go. How can people find you online?
So website is dominiquebroadway.com, and on Twitter at Miss Finance Coach.
Very cool. And of course, those of you who are joining us, for the first time, we'd love to have you join our mailing list, StartupJab.com. You can find me at Jason Nellis on Twitter, as well as my company, overachievermedia.com. Teague, how can everybody find you?
You can find me at Teague Hopkins on Twitter or teaguehopkins.com.
Very cool. Folks, we really appreciate your time. Patrick, thanks for joining us at the last minute. Sorry we couldn't get to you more. Next time, you'll join us. And Dominique, thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome anytime you want.
Thanks for joining us.
Kick Teague out next time. It'll be great.